In this video, we are going to learn how to assign opacity and translucency maps to our model in Maya. We have already exported these maps from Substance Painter, and we just need to bring them into our glass object. I have this glass object right here that is a completely separate model from the rest of my pieces. So this is a separate model. I have also assigned a separate material to it called glass. So this is an AI standard surface as we usually use, and it has a separate material assigned to it. I am going to now start assigning my texture images, and in Substance Painter, glass is called translucency. So in Substance Painter, we've used the translucency attribute to create this glass effect. But when we bring it into Maya, it is going to be called transmission. So transmission and translucency are the same thing, just called different words in the two different software. And if you look at this glass, you'll notice that it is translucent, it has glass properties, but it also has a lot of dust on it. So these parts, the parts which have dust, this is a little pixelated, but the parts that have dust are not translucent, they are more opaque. So we want to bring in all those properties into Maya. Let's start with the transmission. This is where we bring in our glass properties. So I'm going to click on this checkerboard, go to File, and go to the folder and bring in Translucency, Black and White Map, and click on Open. So that brings that in. I'm going to set this to raw, ignore color space file rules, and set this to alpha as luminance, as we do for anything that is not a color map. Now let's go back to, so we were on the transmission section. Now let's go back to our base material. Now we want to make sure that this base color is only affecting these parts, the parts where we have this dust, and it is not affecting parts where we have the glass. So we're going to go to the base color weight, choose our file, and we are going to again bring in our translucency map, click on Open, set this to raw, ignore color space file rules, scroll down, alpha as luminance, and we're also going to turn on one more option. We're going to go to Effects, and in this Effects section, we're going to click on Invert. So now this map, the translucency map that we put in our base color weight, is doing the opposite of what it is doing in the transmission section. We can also set our color for the glass. Let's just set a red. And you still see it's not having any glass properties. That is because of the roughness. So I'm going to, usually you can set the roughness to 0 to get it to look a little closer to glass, but I actually want to use the roughness that I put in Substance Painter to get this slightly roughness effect on the parts that have dust on them. So I'm going to bring in my roughness map that I created, and I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to again set this to the exact same settings we used for black and white maps, and I'm going to go back. So now we have a roughness, and we have to make sure that the index of refraction is 1.5. This is usually the setting that's used for glass. So IOR is a property. It's a property of transparent or translucent objects, and the IOR for glass is 1.5. I'm going to set this, and I am going to now go to, let's go to render this out and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Arnold, Lights, and assign a sky dome. And in the color section, I'm going to bring in an HDR image. And I'm going to set the camera to 0 so that we don't see this background in our render. So let's render it out. And you can see that we do have glass properties. I'm actually going to move my glass so that we can see what it looks like. Let me remove this from my group, and let's rotate it. And you can see that it does have glass properties. It was a little hard to see when it was actually attached to the model. If you have like a claw machine, it's easier to see exactly what that's going to look like. But this is my glass, and what is affected is basically um, the roughness affects how this glass looks. So in some cases, the roughness is going to make it look very strange, so it's not going to give it the exact look that you want. And you can change the IOR, so you can change this to another number. Um, it won't be completely accurate glass, but sometimes when you're using a 3D software, you might want to edit some of these values to get the look that you want instead of aiming for complete accuracy. So you can see that this is now slightly more reflective glass. It is reflecting the background and we can see the object through it pretty clearly. I can change this to a white so it acts more like regular glass. You do see the sky dome reflection in the glass. So if you are using a sky dome light, most of you will be using a sky dome light, try to use a light that does not have an image on it. So there are lights called studio lights that you can use that instead of reflecting an image will just be a black and white light. So this is how you would create glass. Glass is one of the things that's very challenging to get right in 3D. There are a lot of properties to it that sometimes don't show up accurately, but editing the roughness and editing the IOR can get you closer to the result that you want to get. Let's now add in our opacity map. I'm just going to hide the glass. We don't really need it anymore. And let's select our main object. The opacity map is a little more straightforward. So if you scroll down to geometry, go to opacity, go to file, and bring in your opacity. So that opacity map should be somewhere here. So opacity PNG, you can see that I have these cutouts that I created in Substance Painter. You can also see them on my model here. And I'm going to bring that in. And you might not see the cutouts immediately, so you might not see it actually looking like it's a cutout. It's just going to appear as a black and white image. I'm just going to change the settings here as well to raw, alpha as luminance, and I'm going to ignore color space file rules. But you see in your viewport, it still doesn't appear as a cutout. To change this, you can go to Renderer, Viewport 2.0, and the settings. You can go to Transparency Algorithm and set this to Alpha Cut and select and close. And now you can see that you can see this as a cutout, and in your render as well, you will be able to see that part cut out. Let's rotate our lights so we get a better view. And let's get closer to our object. So you can see on our render that these parts are cut out on the render as well. And you can usually use this for vents or anything where modeling the shape would be complicated, but it is easy to just create an alpha and create a cutout of this image.